This year, once again, AGBU Performing Arts Department held a screening of 6 short films at the Francesca Beale Theater at Elinor Bunin Munroe Film Center at Lincoln Center. The event featured films by several recipients of the AGBU Performing Arts Fellowship. Before the event began, an announcement was made about the upcoming film, directed by Harutyunyan, Women of 1915, which will be coming soon to New York City. Prior to the screening, director of AGBU's Performing Arts Department, pianist and composer Armenian, welcomed everyone and spoke about the several programs that the department is currently involved in. The 6 short films included in this year's program were Our Turn, directed by Martiros Vartano. The film tells a story of a father who, compelled to meaningfully answer his son's question about death, responds by making him a film.
My child was born and my dad had passed away just before that. They actually didn't meet each other. And so that somehow played a role in how I constructed it. And I really wrote the music myself. I'm not a musician, but I constructed the soundtrack note by note from discarded pieces of music from my previous film. And so it was a very strange, exhilarating process and very scary, actually. But in the end, I am quite happy with it. But like I said, I take a very long time to make anything. It takes me 3 years to make three-minute films, and some of this you've seen already.
Seen through the eyes of children, animated and directed by Ana Maria Muradian, the film revolves around the subject of the Syrian war depicted by children. Fifth Column, written and directed by AGBU. The film chronicles desperation and mourning in the marginalized Armenian court of Beirut through a weave of allegorical narratives.
Siz somut gözünün bacağını acı var ikrar açar dedi. Tagaraga ikrar nava bir koza varsa. Açma korçunun, canımçının mı beceremiyoruz?
Yes, başkanım. Yani
onu hiç kafasız koyuyorsun. Korçiler ise böyle. Korçiler ne aratçı ne dikçiler. Canımçının, cemina.
Meka canımçının.
Önce bir kese var lan. Yeskudar ki ne ver kaşkanım bu hasi tey suji sigareti ko toy travga.
Man of God, written and directed by Victoria Alexanian. The film tells a story of a young priest who has unholy thoughts about a mystery woman whom he sees every time he rings the bell.
The inspiration of the film was actually based on a dream that I saw. As a first-year Columbia University student at the time, when I was supposed to make the film, we were pressured to come up with ideas very quickly. And I was thinking, what is it that I want to make as my first film and as like as my first experiment, basically. And I was constantly thinking about it, and I came up with this dream. I was just dreaming about a priest that's stuck up on top of a tower, and he's with his bell, and he's like hopeless. I thought it's a good contrast to take like a taboo subject and a priest and the life itself when you're stuck with something that you know this is what you have to do, and this is your profession, or this is your passion, and this is what you swore by to do, and something else that's distracting you, and something else that seems to be a better option, or, you know.
My Dad Who Cries at Movies, directed by Soursourian. The film uses homemade videos of directors as parents to reconstruct the family story.
My father cries at movies, and so I cry at movies, even when the movies aren't the kind you're supposed to cry about. There's just some scene that reminds me of something I lost or never had. My dad cries at movies about being grateful. For example, a movie about a young couple that have a baby, and right afterwards the father gets really sick. A serious disease where he can't breathe or eat or speak. But perhaps I reminded him of a village in Western Armenia, the sound of his mother speaking Western Armenian, a dying language very different from what was spoken in the homeland. Maybe the Father's Day cards reminded him of his own father, who never got many Father's Day cards because he never had many birthday cards either after the age of 31. Maybe it reminded him of his dad's broken body on their front steps, his eyes which would never again look through the viewfinder on his camera, the camera that made his living and made him a target.
I'd gotten all these digitized versions of family home videos, and I was watching them all, and I kind of was like, oh man, I should really put all these together in something. And then separately, I was just kind of free writing, like almost like a poem really about my dad and how he's really sensitive and cries in movies, and how I do, and how his father did. But at the same time, we've all been through certain traumas and succeeded, so we're, you know, I like to think that we're kind of tough too. So like, how is it that we're kind of like strong, tough Armenian men, but we also will cry at very sentimental things? And so the film is kind of an exploration of this line of Armenian men who cry at movies. And I'm half Jewish and half Armenian. My dad isn't very religious, so for him the Armenian side was more just like remembering your history and food. He also is bad at foreign languages, so he doesn't speak Armenian. And my mom, although she's more attached to the Jewish traditions of religion, she's essentially an agnostic too, and for her it's more about kind of the philosophical aspects of Judaism. So for me, it's actually been more about the shared history of oppression. My friend, he's French-Canadian, but he jokes that it's a miracle that I exist because so many people were trying to kill Jews and Armenians throughout history. For me, the Jewish and Armenian side has been more about kind of feeling a personal responsibility towards social justice in the world. And so it's like, you know, both my sides survived because of strength and because of people fighting back against oppression. And so I want to, with my life and with my art, fight against oppression and fight for social justice.
Red Apples, directed by George Sikharulidze. Written and produced by Ophelia Harutyunyan, the film tells a story of a young Armenian bride's relationship with her husband, which is put to the test the first day of their marriage when her mother-in-law interferes.
I'm pretty sure all Armenians know about the tradition Red Apple, and it's still widely practiced in Armenia. And I think people are kind of slowly trying to, they do a variation where they're not as strict about certain things, but it's still considered a tradition, a wedding tradition that everyone is just trying to keep. And unfortunately, it is a story based on true events, and it did happen to someone that I knew, and it stayed with me, and I knew that I wanted to tell the story. I just didn't know how I was going to do it back then. And when I started film at Columbia and I started writing scripts, that was one of the scripts that I wrote, and that's how it came together.
The screening was followed by a question and answer session with directors as well as the producer of Man of God, Sola Fasan, moderated by producer and director Stephanie Ayanian. Ayanian is currently developing A New Armenia, a 60-minute PBS documentary presenting compelling stories about a cross-section of Armenian Americans who are advancing their culture today through the arts, language, religion, business, and politics.
My first day in graduate school, I was in a class and I was asked to present about why I chose to become a filmmaker. During this class, I got up and I talked about the fact that, it's important that I'm Armenian. It's important that I'm an Armenian woman, and it's important that I have an Armenian voice. One of the most memorable things I said that day was that if I cannot save my people through my bloodlines, then I must save them through my work. And at the time, I didn't really fully understand what that meant for my future, but I was very serious about telling Armenian stories. And so I was in a documentary program really pursuing the idea of telling Armenian stories.
Each director had an opportunity to give a brief answer to mediators and audience's questions.
It was a silent film, so everything was supposed to be around sound design, and it's the most expensive and it's the most complicated part of the production, and at some point we ran out of funds, so I just put it aside. I knew that I want to get the sound design done at some point when I can. I had an opportunity to go to Germany last year and just do the sound from the scratch. Foley artists that I found in Film Academy, like one of the regions in Germany. And yeah, so that's how it got done.
This annual short film screening program is an important part of AGBU's Performing Arts Department, which regularly organizes and supports concerts, competitions, and artistic programming around the world.
First of all, our events are getting more and more often. So, and we are also broadening from the music scene that we used to do most of our events. Now we are getting in the field of the film. We are planning on organizing also dance concerts, theater, pantomime. So we need to really, we are called AGBU Performing Arts Department, not Music Department. It just happens so that, we are musicians, the people who work in the department. But we do care about all of the performing arts, and we do care about promoting our performing artists in all those fields. So we will be organizing more of those events, and the most important thing is also that as you see, our events take place in prestigious venues because we want to give more of an international exposure to our Armenian artists and Armenian culture.